Welcome to tonight's podcast with Ryan Sean O'Reilly, David Wilkinson, and James Rauch. This is There Is No Deodorant in Outer Space. Now, let's begin.
Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, and welcome back to There Is No Deodorant in Outer Space.
And good night.
And good night. We're back. I'm with my usual co-host, David Wilkinson, a.k.a. Wilk.
Yeah, hey, that greeting sounds like the one from the Truman Show. I don't know if you ever saw that movie. It's kind of very reminiscent of that.
Oh.
Only you're not
Copyright
really talented
infringement.
like Jim Carrey. Go on.
And my other co-host is James Rauch, a.k.a. Beam.
Hey, how's it going?
All right. And we have a guest with us tonight. His name is Richard Mell. He's a science fiction enthusiast. Rick, why don't you say hello?
How's it going, you guys? I guess I learned about no deodorant in outer space about 2 months ago and kind of perked my interest.
So did we.
Yeah. But, yeah, I mean, yeah, I'm just excited to be here with you guys. And
Define enthusiast.
I guess I'm an enthusiast in that I started reading probably Dune when I was around 12 years old, and I really enjoyed it. And that's what kind of put me through the gateway. So.
And Rick Mell, of course, you are the person who actually introduced me to Dune many years ago, so I appreciate that. It is a wonderful series that maybe we'll talk about one day.
I highly doubt it. I mean, it has that one movie which is kind of forgettable, and a lot of people don't like it for some reason. I actually enjoyed that movie, but
Did David Lynch direct that?
Yes, he did, and but the Sci-Fi Channel also redid.
Which one was better?
I think the movie would have been better. Never saw the TV version though.
I watched both. It was decent. If you're a fan, it has stuff you like about. But a lot of people criticize the Sci-Fi Channel's remakes of stuff because they just don't have the budget that a blockbuster movie.
I thought the Sci-Fi Channel basically just took Roots and put it on some blue screen special effects over it and called it Dune. It's like Roots with a spaceship.
That is a possibility.
Like a real cheaply done.
Okay.
Like Roots NATO.
And on that note, Wilk, do you have any thoughts about the last podcast when we talked about A Clockwork Orange?
I thought we got a little bit off topic. We didn't really roundtable it enough, so I think we should try and keep the conversation going and not do monologues.
More organic.
Yeah. More orgasmic, too. I mean, I'm basically going to try and say something that's, unbroadcastable every 30 seconds this time around. That's my personal goal. So,
as long as you make more work for me, that'll be great.
And please use the phrase more organic as often as possible.
I feel like we're shopping at Whole Foods now. Okay, so let's move on to the actual topic that we're going to discuss tonight, which is, of course, The Running Man by Stephen King, and as well as the movie The Running Man, which is directed by Michael Glazer. Beam, you were going to tell us about Stephen King, a little bit about him,
yes,
and the background to the book?
I would love to. First of all, I guess if you don't know who Stephen King is, you probably aren't listening to this podcast for any real good reason.
Zing!
He's probably the best-selling author of our lives. I think he's sold 350 million books. So you should know who he is by now. I guess I would just like to say that he's my favorite author ever.
Hey, quick. Hey, Beam, about Stephen King. Would you venture that he's circumcised? Based on his age?
Yeah, he's Methodist, so I would say he probably is.
No foreskin, huh?
That's my guess, yeah.
Okay.
But, back to the topic. I don't know, the importance of Stephen King in my life has been huge. I remember when I was in high school, I used to sneak out of classes and my lunch to go to the library to read the book It. I don't know if anybody has ever had a chance to read that, but
great book, horrible movie.
To me, it's like the Lord of the Rings of horror. It's like I would literally sneak out of class to go to the library to read that book because I couldn't take it home. My parents wouldn't allow me to read Stephen King in the house.
That's hardcore, Jim.
We were all pretty cool in high school.
We were nerds, That's
I remember that made-for-TV movie about that, man. That's a scary clown.
But the TV movie was terrible. The book was fantastic.
it was a scary clown. That book is the book is fucking amazing. Like it's honestly one of the best books I've ever read in my life to this day. I still remember, the first Stephen King book I ever read from 20 years ago. It's just the guy's impact on writing and literature is.
He makes you want to write.
unmeasurable.
I mean, really, even when he's bad, I still like him. I really like. I can read any Stephen King thing. I've never stopped reading the book. He's amazing.
I know, and they're so long. Like it.
Yeah, Stephen King is a solid, and he has what I would consider the quintessential book on writing. His book, literally called On Writing, and it's recommended by a lot of people as just a phenomenal book about the writing craft, and part of it's memoir, but a lot of it's just about his career and the writing craft, and it's very insightful, and it's actually a pretty short book. Of anything I've ever seen, I would recommend that over other books.
Any other books that he wrote that we're not discussing that you want to recommend?
We're not talking about The Shining or Shawshank Redemption.
We talked about The Shining last time.
Or no, On Writing it was ranked as one of the 100 books, like the must-read books of the
I
past
disagree.
25
That's
years.
nonsense.
Which is kind of weird considering it's not an actual not an actual fiction.
Yeah,
book.
it's phenomenal.
It's not phenomenal. It's about writing. It's
Well-
adequate.
You've never read it, so
It's a good book about writing. I read it. It's just not. It's literally about writing. It's like reading a book about swimming.
what would you prefer over it?
What's that?
Do you think there's another book that's better about writing?
No, I don't. I think it's the best book about writing ever. Or it's in a tie for thousands of other books about writing.
So, Beam, what else could you tell us about Stephen King?
Actually, about On Writing, I'll tell you one interesting thing about On Writing. It inspired me not to write because
It's huge.
there's a quote in it where he says basically, if you can control it, if it's not such a part of you that you can't stop it from coming out, that you shouldn't write it, basically. Like, there's too many crappy writers in the world, and don't be one of them. That's kind of the whole premise of the book, at least what I took away from
That's
it.
inspirational.
So I was thinking, all right, I'm not just going to, half-ass anything, and I'm not going to try and write a novel.
I disagree. I think you should
good
self-publish.
Probably, because no one would have liked it anyway.
I would have liked it.
And actually, when he wrote this book, he wrote it under his pen name, Richard Bachman, which I believe he based off the band Bachman Turner Overdrive.
Yeah, he wanted to test his popularity and see if he would still be a bestseller, or if he would still be a best-selling author without the name recognition.
Yeah, I think he wanted to
And,
test his talent a little bit more than his name
Yeah.
or his popularity. Test his talent, see where he can go from scratch.
But then he wrote his crappiest books under that name too, so it's kind of weird.
Is there anything else you wanted to say about Stephen King before we move on?
I guess I don't know. I got kind of thrown off my train of thought there. Dark Tower is got to be one of the best series of books of all time. I mean, I freaking love it. He started writing in the 70s and kind of not only did he carry the series on up until present day, but he sort of intertwined the stories with his novels. Like
Black,
certain characters make appearances.
The Man
there,
in Black.
Yeah, and there's just, a lot of his books kind
Did you finish the... Is it done yet, the Dark Tower series? I get confused. There's comic books, and I feel like it's...
Well,
Does it
they
ever
ended.
end?
I think they ended it, and then he kept adding on.
Yeah, they ended it, and then he added on side stories, more or less. Like the 8th book, The Wind Through the Keyhole, is just sort of like a side story, but it's officially, I believe, ended.
Yeah, I'll just add, Stephen King, I was just kind of looking at his bio real quick, and he said what inspired him to get into writing was finding an old book of H.P. Lovecraft in the attic of his house that was, apparently it was his father who, I guess, left the family when they were pretty young. He said he had to buy a pack of cigarettes and never returned.
Now you think of a country song.
Literally, that was his life, and his mom had to raise them. They moved around a lot, but they ended up in Maine. That's where he spent most of his life. And it was interesting to note that he, when he was very young, he witnessed one of his friends being killed by a train. It made me think of the movie Stand By Me, which is based on a dead body being found.
Well, hey, is it true that Maine is like Puerto Rico in that it's a territory but not a state? Or is just the climates are similar?
I'll say this about Stephen King. He's a very prolific writer. He has amazing output. He is very disciplined. He used to write like 2,000 words a day.
No, he still does. He won't stop until he gets his 2,000.
Yeah, and he actually, when he was younger, he tried to sell stories to kids on the playground. So he's been writing for a very, very long time. And I think he said he only slowed down, and he was supposed to retire for a while after he got in that car or that accident where someone plowed into him.
He got hit by a car,
almost killed him, and he had to go into rehab. And actually, it did slow down his writing for a while. He could only sit for like 40 minutes at a time. But he eventually, I think, the guy just can't stop writing. So he never really did retire.
How old is he right now?
He's born in 47, so...
Oh, he's not that old.
Yeah, 53 plus 14. 68? I don't know.
Retirement age.
No, but he's certainly put out enough stuff. And he also had an alcohol and drug addiction, like a lot of writers.
At the same time, or was it alcohol then drugs?
Yeah, he actually, he said that
I think it was all at once, because they had
he wrote a lot of his books while he was high or drunk in the beginning of his career, like...
I am both right now. Well, not really. Just
throughout the 80s, like, and you can see it too, like, as you're reading Running Man. There's a couple chapters that get a little weird for, like, a couple pages here and there, and you can tell, like...
Well, he said he didn't remember writing Cujo. Like, he just has no memory of that book at all, which is pretty amazing, and he apologized. He apologized for Cujo in one of the Dark Tower stories, where he makes an appearance as himself in the hospital bed in one of the later Dark Tower stories, and then he apologizes for the ending of Cujo, which I don't know. He's a big baseball fan. Okay, how about, Ryan, you're kind of the ringleader here. Let's start with the book. Because the book, real quick, we talk about books and movies, but we all agree the book and the movie are just two, this time around, just two separate things.
Oh, yeah, they're definitely separate. This is way different.
I mean, it's hard to even intertwine them. Okay.
Yeah.
But, so...
I could actually draw some sort of relationships between...
Well, hold on. Let's get into that when we get into the movie. But, Will, why don't you do a quick synopsis of the book for us and set that up so we can talk about it.
Okay, a quick synopsis of the book. It's a quick book. It's an intense book. You basically have a guy who has a young daughter and a wife, and they're living in the not-so-distant future, and he can't provide health care, he can't get medicine for her, and he goes to what's called the network, and the network is a literal TV network where you can audition to be on TV shows that pay you cash money for doing great damage to yourself on reality shows. And the most popular show, The Running Man, is where you literally just run from people that are allowed to kill you, and you get money for every day that you survive. And that is the premise. He gets on The Running Man, and he wants to get money sent to his wife and daughter.
And if he dies, they'll still get whatever money he's earned.
X amount of dollars for every day that he's on the show.
Okay, that's pretty much the plot in a nutshell.
That sounds like the Hunger Games.
I read an interview where I think King said that he felt the Hunger Games was sort of derivative.
Most dangerous game
of his work.
Yeah, but his work is sort of derivative of other. It's not an original story. It's got its own take on it. I mean, it's not a novel concept for man hunting man kind of thing. I think he hits the future at more points than other writers do. But
what was this predecessor to The Running Man then? I mean, what inspired The Running Man, do you think?
I don't remember what it's called. The Most Dangerous Game. It's written in 1918. It's a guy has an island. He invites people out there to visit him, and then he hunts them for trophies. And that's almost 100 years old.
Rick, was it you and I were talking about this? Or maybe it wasn't you and I, but
maybe
the big difference between like The Most Dangerous Game and The Running Man, I think, is this media aspect to it, which is in The Most Dangerous Game, it's one crazy guy going after one person, where in this book, which is also way different than the movie, it's the whole world is sort of going after this
Exactly,
guy.
Yeah. It's reality TV before there's reality TV. That was really the genius of it. The guy that created Survivor, I'm blanking on his name, he had a quote right when the show came out saying, if I had a show where I got 10 people to jump out of a plane and one of the parachutes wouldn't open, but everybody got $1 million, I have a line around the block auditioning for the show. And it's the same concept here. People are willing to hurt themselves and die to get a little bit of money and a little bit of fame. And Stephen King hit this in the mid to early 80s before it was even an actual thing. I mean, he kind of pegged that element of our culture.
Yeah, it was pretty prescient.
But anyways, Ryan, you were running the podcast.
Oh, and I will continue to.
Okay, yes. Well, he wrote this book in a week, too, which is pretty amazing.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. He was. It was a fast read too, not only a fast write.
Well, the crazy thing is, like, I think it was 100 chapters. You know, like at the halfway point, you're like, this guy's dead. It's done. But like, where's he gonna go from here? But he manages to keep it going. I mean, I remember like it's like chapter 50 or 49. I'm like, well, he's fucked. He can't get out of this.
Yeah. I had the same thought. It was like chapter 42. I was like, holy shit, this book has a long way to go. This guy should probably be dead soon.
Yeah.
No, it's a true odyssey. I mean, the guy's got to go from one hard place to the next, and I think there was probably about 3 or 4 hard places that he went through before he finally kind of fell into his situation at the helm of the plane. You know.
Yeah.
The beginning would have been him kind of finding himself in the didn't he go to like Boston or something like that first? But he started from Co-op City, which I thought was kind of like maybe referring to Midwestern City, Chicago, possibly.
Oh, I think he was supposed to be west of Detroit.
Yeah, it's west. And
Okay.
just quick point. Once again, this is our 3rd book in a row that has hover cars, and everyone at some point envisioned the future with hover cars, and they didn't picture it with these fucking cell phones and Facebook and all this other bullshit that makes life horrible.
And they all smoke cigarettes, too.
Yes, they did. They smoked cigarettes. And, oh, God.
They smoked dokes, actually.
Dokes.
Oh, yeah, dokes.
What was the saying in the book? He's like, real men smoke dokes or something like that.
Rich blokes
yeah.
smoke dokes.
Rich
Yeah.
blokes, yes.
It was a hardcore book, though. I mean, the guy's wife was turning tricks to get medicine for his daughter.
So I would say one of the things about this book, which is pretty, which I think King does a good job of, is the sort of paranoia that the main character feels. I mean, you could really feel the character where he's basically, it's not in a closed arena. His arena is the whole entire world, and the whole entire world can turn him in at any point and earn money, or kill him and earn money. And so you really, I mean, the character has to put on disguises, and he's constantly thinking, you know, they're onto me. And sometimes you never really know if they're really onto him. He just has a notion and he moves on. And I think King does a really good job of that. But yet you see the conflict, because at some point he's got to trust someone, because he can't really just go hide in a hole, because they'll probably just find him eventually. Because, well, one of the other interesting aspects of the game is, of course, the mailings, where he is required to put 2 videotapes of himself talking, what was it, for 10 minutes?
Yeah, which would be the equivalent today of doing like a tweet or an email. Stephen King had he had to find a post office box and mail the videos into, which was the reason he couldn't go into a hole. And I guess if you're going to work around that with our modern technology, they could GPS him or whatever if he used a cell phone. But yeah, he basically had to check in twice a day.
But and the point is, the main character constantly says he thinks that that's how they're tracking him, because they say, the game says to him, we don't check the postmarks on the mailing, but he suspects that it's corrupt, and they are using the postmarks on the envelopes to narrow in on what city or whatever post office that he's in. Since if he doesn't send those letters in, then he defaults and loses the game, and they'll still try to go after him and kill him.
Right. So, and he's right. I mean, like, I think in almost every instance they are on top of people, his neighborhood, and I mean, yeah.
Right. I think it's a simple mechanism for Stephen King. I mean, it allows the reader to just be always kind of guessing, because this guy is really keeping a low profile out there, and he's doing a really good job. King needs this mechanism to sort of make it exciting, I think. Otherwise, this guy's kind of like roaming around, and he's really good at what he does, keeping a low profile.
And Rick, the crazy thing is, like we were saying earlier, it just over the halfway point, he's caught. You're like, oh, this is over. But he changes the whole tone from like he's trying to get away to he's caught. Here's what he does when he's caught, and that the way it plays out. I mean, as it gets closer and closer to the end, I mean, it gets excruciating. He's literally, holding his guts in his hands for 4 chapters as he makes. Yeah, that was great. God, I read this book when I was like 11 or 12, and I love rereading it right now. It's punk rock, man. It's just a punk rock book. It's
really
great.
is.
I mean, the way the last line of the book, I don't have it with me, where it basically says, "And fire rained down for 30 blocks." I mean, that was fucking awesome. I mean, I don't. We can give away the ending. We're swearing here, but like,
well, Stephen King gives away the ending in the intro to the book.
Yeah, but I mean, I read it before.
I love when the intestines, like the loop of intestines, catch on the chin of the guy that he killed in the plant. And it's like one more thing.
Well,
oh god, it's a great fucking book.
Okay, just real briefly. I mean, like out of the four of us here, I mean, I would recommend this book to anyone. I mean, it's a great book. It's a quick read and it's a great book. I mean,
yeah,
I
agree.
I loved everything about it.
Well, let me ask you before we just conclude on the book. What did you think about the? I think there's an interesting dynamic in that the character is doing this whole. He's basically throwing his life away to better his family, his sick daughter, his wife, who is having to prostitute herself literally to make money to help their sick daughter. So he has to balance himself doing that, and then he runs into these people who help him. I think it's Bradley and his family, who start to tell him about how corrupt the world is, which is something the main character thinks. He literally is out of work because he thinks the world is corrupt and refuses to partake in this job that he thinks is making him unhealthy.
Okay.
Well, and he's not a loon, too. I mean, he shares a lot of, common ground with many of the people around him. It's big contingent out there that think the same thing.
And this Bradley character kind of makes it, I guess, sort of
an everyman.
Tells him he's right.
Yeah.
He tells him he's right and basically says, yes, there's a lot of pollution going on, and there's an easy way for people to make cheap filters so that they can avoid pollution, but the government's not letting that happen. And so I find it interesting how the character, he's sort of, I think in the beginning of the book, he doesn't really care about, he sort of cares that he's really just in it to help his family. But by the end, he finds out his family is dead. His last act is not for his family or a selfish thing. He does it to benefit the world. That's sort of the growth of this character, as he turns from kind of just looking at his own personal problems and then extrapolating it and saying, what can I do for the
Maybe. I
don't know. Like,
he was going to fly that plane in that building any chance he got. He was never planning on surviving.
Yeah.
And he wanted to come back and kill that guy. I mean,
right.
At any point.
Yeah, fuck the world. I mean, it was just all about vengeance, I thought.
Yeah, I mean, his whole life was fucked. I mean, he learned something new about pollution, but his attitude wasn't changed. He was raging against the machine since he was a kid, based on those things in there. I mean, but yeah, I liked how he was kind of tweaking people. When he sent his tapes in, he was giving them vital information the network couldn't broadcast. And that was he was just saying fuck you at every turn. I like the guy.
Yeah, very likable character.
What do you think about the Killian character, who's the face of the network, who...
I liked him too. They were both good guys.
I think he was just doing his job. I mean, he had a good job, in that society, that would be a great job to have. He looked out for the best interest of the network, obviously, and he was just kind of realistic with Ben the whole time. And
well, he actually helps Ben in the beginning. It tells Ben to stay among the lower class people because they'll actually help him, and the regular people won't.
Yeah, there was nothing particular about this guy that made you dislike him. It wasn't like the show host on the movie. It was not Richard Dawson.
Well, although but Ben clearly wants to go after him.
Well, he
I
should
think
go
he makes
after
that
him.
comment in the book.
He helps him, but he's helping him generate good ratings for the network. I mean, the longer he's
Right.
alive, the better off it is. I mean,
Yeah.
and again, he's making a conscious decision to have a certain role in life, his career, and I don't know how you guys feel about certain people that have certain careers, but fuck them in some cases. I mean, we all got to feed our families, but there should be a limit to what you have to do. And this guy's wife is out turning tricks.
Yeah, he's the 1%.
Exactly.
He's representative of the 1%.
Mm-hmm.
And he's the face of the network, so he has a job to do, and he does it well. And he offers him a job at the end, so he's making intelligent decisions, but...
He's
Yeah.
heartless. It's all about money.
He's not heartless. He's just in a position where he deserves to die. I mean, I'm sure he might be a real nice guy, and maybe he's got a beautiful wife and some kids at home. But he made his choices. And that's the result of those choices. You shouldn't feast among the poor. You shouldn't live among the wretched. Because come the revolution, some motherfucker's going to fly a building to your office.
What about the character of Amelia, who is his hostage and not from the masses, and we're kind of led to believe is more of the upper crust, and she is sort of just like, leave me alone, but in the end, when she gets let go by
When she gets pushed out of a plane with a parachute, yeah.
Well, no, before that, she actually gets let go, and she doesn't betray him, which
I love how he laments that this won't, have a small effect on her. And he feels bad about the fact that he's changing this woman's life forever. It just really cemented for me the whole fact that you just love this main character. It was an interesting little thing.
Why do you think that she didn't turn him in when she had the chance?
Because the police were firing at the car when she was in it, and she realized that there was corruption. It's like, wow, they maybe the police aren't all nice, neat soldiers. Maybe they're a bunch of dicks. I'm out of wine.
With guns.
Sharon! Let's wrap this up.
So,
I am out of...
I'd say, okay, so let's just wrap up the book then. So, Wilk, what would you say overall about the book, your feelings?
I just love it for what it is. It's not great literature, but it's a 5-star book in my opinion. I could read it 3 or 4 more times in my life and be just as happy. It's a great read. I'd recommend it to anyone.
Okay, Jim, Beam.
Yeah, I loved it. I've never read it before. I saw the movie, back in the 80s Arnold days, before we get into all that, and it's great. It's classic King, great protagonist, it's a good story, and I think the Hunger Games owes him a debt of thanks.
Okay, Rick, our guest.
Yeah, Ben Richards was probably one of the greater science fiction characters that I've read about. He's got an attitude. He has definitely got an edge, and he's got everything to kind of put it all out there for, and really nothing to lose. So he's kind of perfect character in that sense, especially within the sci-fi genre. And I kind of found it interesting. Stephen King had quite a bit to say about the society, and I believe this is kind of like something that he had possibly some inkling of knowledge or premonition about what society would be like in the near future. And well, obviously he wrote a book about it, but I think in a lot of ways he was right. And this is kind of like what has become of society. Not exactly, but we're on that track.
For me, I would say this is a very good book. I didn't love it. I didn't think it was a 5-star book for myself, but I do think it's a very quick read, and I would highly recommend it for someone who's not a typical Stephen King fan or someone who's never read Stephen King, because I think it's not a horror book, and I think this is a great way for you to introduce to the skill and proficiency of King as a writer. I think there's a touch of horror here in this book. There's a particular scene that always stuck out with me, is when the character goes down that sewer. That, to me, that scene was classic King, and I really felt the fear and stuff in that. And it's midway through the book, so I knew the character was going to survive, but I still felt it in classic King sense. But it's in a lot of ways it's not a classic King book, but it shows how diverse of a writer he is and how great of a writer he is. So I recommend it in that sense. And that's
how many bags of popcorn do you give
it? Bags of popcorn. I'll give it 3.
That was classic King, because they end up in the sewers in It, and he goes through the sewers in Shawshank.
Yeah,
it was,
something about sewers.
True, very true. I didn't realize that.
Yeah, that scene was it really made, it gave me the creeps in a classic King way.
Oh yeah, it's total claustrophobia. He's like the master of fear. Like every fear imaginable.
Well, it's a symbol of the bowels of society too. I mean, when you're in the bowels of society, you're really feeling the worst brunt of it, and
yeah,
symbolic.
Let's talk about the movie The Running Man. It was directed by Paul Michael Glazer. Go ahead, tell us about the director.
Paul Michael Glazer is unremarkable for the most part. He's in Starsky and Hutch. He really didn't direct many movies. Here is the fast.
He was Starsky.
He was Starsky, yeah. He wasn't Cagney, he wasn't Lacey. He was Starsky. Here's the fascinating thing about him. He got his career started in 1971, primarily. Had a few things before that, but really 71 is where he took off. There's a rumor going around the internet, and it appears to be that Paul Michael Glazer is D.B. Cooper. And if you look at the facts, D.B. Cooper hijacked the plane on November 24th, 1971, right before Paul Michael Glazer rose to prominence. If you line up the timelines, it makes perfect sense that he is D.B. Cooper.
So, Rick, you were going to tell us, what did Arnold say about this, about Michael Glazer?
Well,
wait, is this for real?
Well, let's finish off with what Wilk had to say. So,
change the subject.
Why would Paul Michael Glazer want to get rid of his identity?
I mean, if you Google Paul Michael Glazer as D.B. Cooper, a lot of things do come up, and it could be like a crazy spoof, but a lot of people do talk about this. He hates it. He files restraining orders against anyone that mentions it in public. and on the radio or anything, he is incredibly sensitive to the whole thing. Because I guess it's tormented him throughout his career because someone called him DB Cooper one time, and it just stuck. It literally drives him crazy because there's these bizarre theories going around that he bought his way into Hollywood for the money that he stole as DB Cooper, and he really is not a talented man. I mean, everything he's been involved in is really, really kind of shitty.
This doesn't sound very factual. I'm smelling a post-show apology recording coming on.
Have you guys checked out his latest project? It's all about kind of some kind of crystal, discovering your inner true powerful being, something along those lines. But it's kind of odd, it's religious almost.
Scientology.
Yeah, it's almost religious. But yeah, the movie was so fucking bad that Arnold Schwarzenegger was apologizing and blaming it on Paul Michael Glazer. Because he thought that the movie was shot like it was made for television, and it was almost like Paul Michael Glazer was shooting or taking his cues from what he knew the director was doing while he was filming Starsky and Hutch on a weekly basis.
Paul Michael Glazer did actually direct some TV prior to this, and
sure.
To be fair, I think Arnold said that they didn't give Glazer enough time. I'm not sure if it changed anything, but they were already 2 weeks into filming, and the previous director was way over budget, and then they threw Paul Michael Glazer at it. And
I liked the movie, though. I mean,
I really loved the movie back in the 80s.
He took such a profound message from King, and he just completely muddled it while he made his movie. And the message was about how an oppressed society can be completely sort of sedated by the media, okay? And to an extent, that very fact is true to life, and it was especially true in the 80s. I mean, everyone was glued to the television, and that fact was sort of glossed over in the movie. That was not the main story of this, and King's message was much stronger in his book. The movie took that message, pretty much flushed it down the toilet.
Yeah, it really did.
The movie played like pro wrestling, and not just because I had Jesse Ventura in there, but like everything was kind of staged. The different, it's a great act. It's a great '80s movie. It's a great Arnold movie. It's got all the platitudes a guy could want. I mean, but yeah, it's not Stephen King's story, but it's still a great movie in its own right for dumb, cheesy action movies, which I kind of love too if done right. I mean, it's not anything special, but it's well, it kind of is. It really is a great Schwarzenegger movie.
Here,
movies like that. Just
Arnold said, "I'll be back in it." It's
only the reruns. Only the reruns.
No, not to me. Not to me.
Pete, why don't you give us the quick synopsis of the movie? Let's set that up.
Okay, so this crazy fat ice skater takes an awesome fucking
you're jumping ahead.
ice stick and tries
No,
to...
start there. I prefer that.
Wait, no. I thought Wilk was going to do this.
Okay, Wilk, give us a quick
Basically, Schwarzenegger's character, unlike the character in the book, works for the government. He is like some kind of paramilitary cop, and there's a food riot, and he says, they just want food! And they knock him unconscious. And then they, like, he goes to prison, he breaks out of prison, and they re-edit the video so it looks like he's machine gunning the crowd. They put him on a very glitzy game show host with Richard Dawson as the host. And
who's the host in real life?
Family Feud.
Family Feud, and he does a great job. And Arnold,
he's just playing himself.
But it plays out like American Gladiators, which actually was going on at the time, where it's these very orchestrated fights between what are gladiators.
I'm gonna shove my fist into your stomach and rip out your spine.
Yeah, and then at the end,
well, unlike the book, he's going against these gladiators, essentially, as opposed to everyone in the world. And it's actually in like a closed arena or whatever. It's a huge place, but it's closed. It's not the whole world like the book is.
A battle zone or something.
It's a large octagon.
And again, I think as what you and Rick were saying earlier, I mean, really the whole theme is kind of a gladiator theme, so he was just kind of bringing it back there too, fighting for the amusement of other people, downfall of society. But he really kind of, I mean, Stephen King's book was so, I mean, you could make that movie right now on a shoestring budget. I think I read somewhere there's talk of doing that. And it was like 6 or 7 years ago, but like, it'd be a great, gritty, independent film. The main character is like 160 pounds, kind of a string bean, just an angry, pissed off guy.
Yeah.
And, he's just being chased, I mean, I don't know.
Well,
I
in
think
in the movie, the people being chased don't go in volunteer. Like in the book, it's voluntarily people participate in the game. In the movie, they're supposed to be giving criminals like a last chance to
correct, right? That's a big difference.
parole
You're right.
themselves.
Yeah, and really, I think the book is so much darker. And I mean, King even said in the intro that Bachman wrote stuff that was too dark for Stephen King, which should give everybody like Stephen King a raging hard on. That there's stuff that's too dark for him. But I mean, the problem with this movie, though, besides it's very 9/11, is that it ends with a plane being flown into a building, which apparently, I don't know, it's not funny yet. I don't know, 9/11 too soon. Yeah,
9/11 ruined that forever.
No, the movie doesn't end. Or you're talking about if they film the book as it's written.
Yeah. Well, and really, Arnold and Stallone, when they were in their prime, and I'm putting them in the same category, they put all these caveats in movies where they had to have so much screen time, so much their faces on posters. They would never die at the peak of their career in a movie. So right there,
It was like Sosa versus McGuire. Like they were the kings.
yeah. But
They
you
pretty much said
can't
what went.
blame Michael Glazer for changing them. I mean, Schwarzenegger had to have a Schwarzenegger ending, which is they're all good, they're all happy, they're all action. I mean, he defined action movies for 10 years there, and this is one of the ones that he used, and it's a great Schwarzenegger movie, but it's a pretty shitty interpretation of Stephen King's book, which would have been really hard to make in that era, though. I mean, maybe now you could make it because it's cheaper to make things like that, but no studio would get behind that story probably just because of the overall, dark subject matter.
Are you going to filibuster us for the next 10 minutes, and then you're going to say, I got to go, guys?
Yes.
All right.
Rick, what do you? It sounds like you want to say something about the movie. Go ahead.
Oh, sure. Yeah, the movie was completely fucking despicable in every way. It was a subversive message to everybody that you're in it right now. This is it. We're taking King's message, we're twisting it, and we're making you sort of salivate all over Arnold Schwarzenegger and his stupid one-liners. And, it's just candy for the public, basically. Here, eat it up.
Did you enjoy how weak the woman was, though? That was
How
enjoyable.
weak the woman was?
How weak the stereotypical Mexican woman was. That was fun.
I didn't really enjoy her character either, no.
The amount of the stereotypes were just thick. Yeah, it was terrible. It was.
No,
terrible.
I thought it was a
It really
crappy
was.
Schwarzenegger movie. It only grossed like $20 million. And, the public has some kind of taste, but I mean, here you had an Arnold Schwarzenegger movie that only grossed $20 million. And that says it right there.
I love when she was like, "What are we doing? Where are we going? What are we doing?" And he's like, "You're going to get us killed." And he lifts her up and literally like holds her by his bicep and like runs down stairwells. "You're
Right.
going to get us killed." And she's like, "What's going on? I don't understand."
Right. And she's kind of a dumb bimbo that filled the whole, puffy-haired 80s mold. And it was just freaking spastastic as far as that goes.
That's
But
a
I
good
mean,
word for it.
Okay, they used Richard Dawson, right? He was popular at the time he did the movie. All right? And he was himself that whole time.
He does a great job of being himself.
Yeah,
Very
he
well.
does a great job of being himself, but he's also showing us that, this is actually working in public at large right now on your TV. Your kids could be watching, he's part of it. He knows that he's part of it.
I think that the movie does a lot better job than the book of showing the role of TV and media. Those scenes where they have like just kind of the people like in the masses just around like a drive-in movie screen watching the show and cheering on, that sort of kind of sets a little bit more of an interesting setting as far as
yeah,
the
in the
interaction.
movie they show multiple classes. They show like the business people and they
Yeah.
show the bums. Yeah.
And everyone's kind of it really hits home the point of how, like, what kind of society is this where people would just be
Right.
killed on TV and everyone's cheering for it.
But that was the only notion that the movie gave us, where there was some kind of class thing going on, but you weren't really sure what the hell was going on. You wouldn't understand it if you didn't read King's
And Rick,
book.
he wins the crowd over. He wins the crowd over in the movie. That does not happen
Yeah.
in the book, really. I mean,
Yeah.
not to that extent.
Yeah, I don't think the class they don't show the class system well. I think the point is the movie does a good job of showing how the media, how the government's really using it to manipulate society, and
Yeah.
it shows how much society's degraded to the point where people are cheering on the death of another human just for sport like this.
Right, yeah.
And that's a little bit, I think, better in the movie than the book.
Well, I don't know. I mean,
I don't think you even compare them. I mean, I like them both, but the movie and the book I look at them independently. The movie has just a name and character reference to the book.
I like juxtaposing them, and I think there is sort of a rhyme and a reason why. I mean, this is about media, and the media itself, as it goes mainstream into the movie theater and through Hollywood, it gets filtered quite a bit. It gets filtered specifically because Hollywood and media in general is sort of the message of the original story. So they do a really damn good job filtering it out. And I thought that was fascinating.
They also had CGI where they had the scenes where they fake kill Arnold.
They had fake CGI, which is ironic, though. I mean, they faked CGI by having the people do it in the movie. Which is, I don't know. It's kind of funny.
Yeah.
Not really funny.
The bad guys, the bad guys in the movie are fun in a campy sort of way. They each have their own special skill.
Yeah, and none of them exist in the book at all.
No. But I mean, if you submit yourself to this movie for what it is, you can get into the they're almost like superhero bad guys that are the gladiators.
It was probably popular when it came out. I mean, Arnold was at the top of his game.
Who's your favorite, Ryan? Who was your favorite bad guy?
I just enjoyed how they were all different and how they all had their like this.
Who was your favorite?
If you had a penchant for one of them, who would it be?
I don't. I like.
You're on desert island with one of them. Who do you choose?
I like ice hockey guy. That guy was.
I know that you really like Dynamo.
I do.
That guy really does sing opera. I read that guy really did sing opera in the movie. He could sing opera.
I like the old woman that he asks, who's next? Who's coming up? Yeah. She's like, well, my son and husband have their favorites, but I want Sub-Zero.
Professor Tatanka, who was literally from the WWF, along with Jesse Ventura. And they also had, who was the football player in it? Jim Brown. And Paula Abdul did the choreograph the stupid dancing.
She did?
Yeah.
We almost can't blame them. I mean, it was 30 years ago. They were doing the best.
It's the height of the 80s.
They were just on they were on way too much cocaine back then. They didn't give a shit.
It's the 80s. It's the 80s in all its glory.
It really was.
What was the drug in the 90s? Remember, this is the 80s cocaine. We were other than. I mean, was there a 90s drug? It was just.
I would think heroin because of the grunge scene and Kurt Cobain and all that.
Yeah, I was going to say heroin, but
I never did heroin though.
Me either.
Neither did I.
Yeah.
So, I guess it really couldn't be the 90s drug.
Well, it wasn't the 90s drug for us, but I guess that was what was in vogue with.
I guess it depends on what you were doing at the time.
Robitussin. Getting my tuss on.
I was robing hard, man. Robitussin all the way.
Robochipping, Mitch.
Well, okay. Does anyone have any other comments about the movie?
Any other of you see McBain in like everything Arnold did in this movie?
Yeah.
God, I was total McBain. Everything wrong with the 80s, every stereotype, every like cliche 3-word phrase. Oh God, it was beautiful.
It's classic Arnold.
Okay, what were the legitimately good Schwarzenegger movies though? Total Recall, that was pretty good, pretty true to the story. I mean, if you watch that, it's a good one.
Terminator 2 was one of the best movies ever made.
Yeah, actually, I like Terminator 3 a lot. I like the first 3 are pretty good. Like the ending of Terminator 3 is pretty ballsy. I mean, without get into all of it, but it really kind of ties the franchise up pretty well.
Huh.
You can't fight fate.
I like the original Terminator. I like Total Recall.
Total Recall, another Philip K. Dick book.
3 boobs.
Yeah, 3 boobs, man. Good story too.
All right, well let's wrap this up. Wilk, what would you say your final comment?
I'm surprised you guys don't like the movie as much as I do. I just thought it was a classic 80s Arnold action movie, but yeah, I mean, I think they're both great. I think you can enjoy them on different levels, and I'd like to see them remake the movie or make the movie in a truer form to the book, which is a better story.
Okay. Beam?
I like how they were talking about steroids in the movie a little bit too.
Yeah.
No, what was the question?
Your final thoughts on the movie?
My final thoughts on the movie? I loved it when it first came out. I remember being a kid watching it and thinking, oh my god, she's in a spandex suit, that's so hot. Watching it 30 years later, it's classic Arnold. That's all there is to say. It was, whatever Arnold is, that's what that movie is.
Okay, Rick.
Just I guess I'm in that same boat. Like, I was kind of enthralled by Arnold, and then when I saw that movie for the first time, it was exciting and it was a little different. But come back to it, and it's like, what the hell was I thinking back then? I was 13 years old, but what about those adults who actually paid for movie tickets to get in there and see that? I mean, I hope they didn't enjoy it like I did back then. But yeah, just for the sake of the future, I suppose. But I mean, yeah. Ryan, how about you? What did you think about it?
I'd say it's great for a look back to the '80s and for the sort of campy, fun-filled viewing of Arnold in all his '80s glory, with the peak of his one-liners, probably. And for that, it's enjoyable. But otherwise, it's it's bad for all those same reasons.
Exactly.
And that's pretty much how I feel about it.
Right on.
Okay, well,
all right, guys, I have a bloody nose. My nose is bleeding.
Your nose is bleeding?
For real.
Why?
I don't know. It's happening a lot. It is. I'm getting blood all over my hands.
You've probably been thinking too hard.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Well, for anyone who's listening, feel free to subscribe our podcast on iTunes.
Leave comments, too. Leave comments. Tell us what you think.
Leave comments and write reviews. Those are very appreciated. So next month, or next show, we'll be reviewing A Princess of Mars, which is the first book in the John Carter series by Edgar Rice Burroughs, who's the author of Tarzan, and the movie John Carter, directed by Andrew Stanton, that stars Taylor Kitsch. All right, until next time.
All right. I'm covered in blood. I gotta go. Love you guys.
Goodbye, everyone.
That's our sign
Goodbye.
Covered in blood, gotta go.
For more information on this episode's subject matter, and to read our show notes and post your witty comments, visit us at nodeodorant.com. For more information on Ryan Sean O'Reilly and his various works of fiction, visit RyanSeanO'Reilly.com. For more information on David Wilkinson or James Rauch, view their profiles at Goodreads.com. The theme music for this podcast was written and composed by John Doyle from the band I Decline. Thank you for listening to our podcast. We hope you've learned a lot. Oh, and always remember one thing. There is no deodorant in outer space.
Good evening, this is David Wilkinson, or Wilk, as I'm affectionately known in some circles. I am formally apologizing to people who thought that I was serious and that Michael Glazer was thought to be D.B. Cooper. I'm sorry you're so stupid and don't understand satire. But most of all, I'm sorry if, for some reason, your pea-sized brain and tiny feet made you think that D.B. Cooper was in any way Michael Glazer. Of course, that's not the case. God bless and good night.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, sorry about that, 10 minutes of silence. My child walked into the room and my wife was arguing with me, telling me that I can smell the alcohol from here.
Damn, babe.
She's standing in the door. She's standing in the doorway.
I drink a lot.
Mouthing at me. I can smell you. I can smell you. What are you talking about? The alcohol, I can smell it from here.
You don't sound bad.
That's because I haven't been talking. Yeah,
I'm sobering up here. Can we get going here? Okay.
I think I'm good now.
Yeah.
Sit still, B.
Okay, so.
Thanks, Ryan.
Yeah.
Well, we're getting a bad quality recording. I'm just telling you.
All right, so
I
what
don't
were we
know.
talking about?
Ryan ruined it.
The intestines. Intestines caught on someone's face.